Who is this product for? I'm going to show you a clip here that shows the audience's reaction when this is revealed. And keep in mind, this is Apple's core fan base.
Starts at $34.99. It will be available early next year on apple.com.
We hear some laughs and chuckles, but people are not thrilled by this price point. I don't even know if they're thrilled by the product, even if it was free. Is it possible with all the R&D done on Apple Vision? They decided, you know what? We have to release this. We either have to pull the plug or release it. And let's just release it because we have spent so much money on this thing. I'm super curious what kind of product, a Bitcoin-related product, that Apple could have come up with if they had spent that same time focusing on that instead of this vision thing. There would be no other company that was even close to them in terms of value. The next thing that we need to focus on is why that was the audience's reaction. Why was it that people like yourself, myself, saw this thing, saw the price and went, no. Why did it turn our stomachs? Why did it make us feel weird and queasy inside? Maybe the idea of strapping a dystopian nightmare to your face just isn't for everyone. This scene from WALL-E looks like a paradise of Adonises and Aphrodites compared to what Apple is promising. After the past 2 years, people are waking up to what's really important. Friends, family, face-to-face connections, real relationships with real people, sitting on real grass, in the real sun, or under real stars. Have you heard anyone say, I like screens so much, I want one strapped to my face? Spend 5 minutes with a Bitcoiner, and the chances that you're still talking about Bitcoin after that 5 minutes is pretty low. You'll probably move on to things like milking goats, what's better, wrestling or jujitsu, how to make cheese, what type of cotton is really best for shirts, and what kind of sheets should you be sleeping in, and should you ever wear synthetic fibers instead of wool? Notice how everything I just mentioned is real, tangible stuff that you can feel with your hands. Apple Vision promises none of that. Keep in mind, I'm reading this from CNET, a technology website. That's what they focus on. They do tech reviews and that sort of thing. Right here, Mark Cyril says, the Apple Vision Pro is a dystopian device for a dystopian world. Commentary, it's not for normal people. He's talking about the announcement video here. It occurred to me roughly halfway through the above video. A dad stands awkwardly in the kitchen. He's using the Vision Pro headset to check his email when his daughter, dressed up to play soccer, complete with goalie gloves, runs out. She rolls a ball to her dad, who, still wearing the headset, sort of distractedly kicks the ball back to her. As a dad who spent a depressing amount of time trying to get rid of their kids so I could spend more time glued to an Apple device, it was relatable. It also felt icky. But it wasn't designed to feel icky. It was supposed to be heartwarming, designed to dispel concerns about the Vision Pro and virtual reality headsets in general. Look, it says, the dream is possible. You can still live life and interact with your family while wearing a gigantic, expensive headset on your face. You won't become a hollowed-out shell of a human. The Vision Pro won't suck you into a virtual reality hellscape devoid of human interaction. And maybe it won't, but that doesn't matter. Regardless of how it works and if it works, for the past 10 years, human beings have loudly and repeatedly told the big brains of Silicon Valley that they don't want to put computers on their face. He goes on to say here, by charging $3,499 for a souped-up headset, Apple is telling us exactly what the Vision Pro is. This isn't a toy for normal people. It's a dystopian device for a dystopian world. A world where poor people struggle through a recession and rich people find new and inventive ways to squander their wealth. Did you feel more connected, more alive, more in tune with nature and the spirit of life than ever before these past couple of years? Because I sure didn't, and I don't think I'm alone. This is another blip from an article, again from CNET, talking about the woes that ailed us in these past couple of years. This article is titled, How Tech and Social Media Are Making Us Feel Lonelier Than Ever. And this is the standout part. Schwabel cites research from Oxford University that found out of 150 Facebook friends, you can truly count on only 4. On average, when you need a real friend, the kind who picks you up from the hospital after a procedure, helps you pack on moving day, and listens to you dissect your breakup for the 16th time because you need to process it just once more. Promise. If we know through all these studies that the root of happiness is relationships, he asks, why are we letting technology deceive us into thinking we have more than we have? Enter Zoom fatigue, the much discussed condition du jour, which could end up being a harbinger of a renewed reach for connections beyond Facebook birthday messages. What we've learned from coronavirus is the more we use technology, the more we actually want to be in person, connecting to other people, he says. It's pushing us to be more human. Let's say for a moment you don't believe me. Maybe you still think that locking yourself into this contraption that tracks your eyes and tries to get as close to reading your mind as possible is a good thing. What I'm going to read you next is from a peer-reviewed, cited research paper, and I assume you recall what happened across the entire world in the past couple of years, and we came out of that more depressed, more anxious, and more suicidal than ever. This is a pretty lengthy study, but this is the core of it right here. These relations of differently diagnosed mortality, but potentially harboring an insidious mental state of anxiety, depression, or anomie, led to the conclusion that our suicide models underestimate the degree to which national economic loss and unemployment are risk factors to suicide. The ancillary diagnosis in which suicidal intent could be a major underlying component were not taken into account as potential suicides. I'll talk about that in a second. Thus, many true suicides that were labeled differently in the ICD code due to stigma, religion, unfamiliarity with psychiatric bias of morality, diagnosis, or error are likely, according to our findings, to have been substantially underreported. Therefore, the impact of these macroeconomic phenomena on officially designated suicide, even taken as a proxy marker of anxiety and depression, do not fully indicate the magnitude of mental distress brought about by recession in the short and long term. The way I read this part, the part that I said I was going to touch on, quote, in which suicidal intent could be a major underlying component were not taken into account as potential suicides. What I hear there is that people so distraught with the way the world was, how disconnected they were, how the economic situation, so many unknowns, horrible situation forced upon people, shoved down their throats by fiat, by decree, left people in such a malaise, such a depression that they possibly put themselves in situations that led to their demise. Maybe they ended up in a situation that their car ran into another car and it was deemed an accident, not a suicide. Maybe they left the stove on and their house burned down and that was deemed an arson or a house failure or a stove failure or something like that, but not an actual suicide. The reason I'm bringing this all up is I want you to remember what happened recently. What did many of us do while we were locked in our homes? Did we look at our screens less? Did you look at your phone less? Did Zoom's stock price plummet? Did you hear children playing with each other outside on a regular basis, or were they stuck inside where they couldn't play with each other? Were they stuck inside where they couldn't converse with each other? Did they possibly, maybe, has it been reported anywhere that children are having difficulty talking to one another due to speech impediments because they were not on the playgrounds? Did that happen anywhere at all? And now Apple would have us believe that literally strapping a screen to our face is going to improve our lives? Bitcoin, while digital, yes, paradoxically guides us into a pasture of anything but the digital. The orange rabbit hole leads us to a wonderland full of homesteading, families, and deeper appreciation for what truly matters, the connection that we have to each other. And if all of this hasn't been enough to convince you that strapping screens to your eyes so that Apple can try to read your brain isn't a good idea, and that maybe, just maybe, paying attention to Bitcoin, researching a little bit, just in case it catches on, might be a good use of your time, here's some money talk for you. Let's be super bearish for a moment and assume that the price of Bitcoin stays at the roughly $26,000 USD that it's at right now, all the way until January. Let's say it comes out right in the first week of 2024. Let's say instead of buying the Apple Vision thing, you use that $3,500 to trade it for Bitcoin. You get something like, let's see here, about 13 million sats. What happens a few months later during the halving? Again, let's say nothing changes, that the price stays the same. Well, if the same amount of money is still chasing half the amount of Bitcoin, then at the very least, if nothing else changes, your value is suddenly doubled. It's doubled in a few months. Now, I don't know about you, but that seems like a pretty good deal to me. Do you think you would be able to sell your Apple Vision for double what you paid for a few months later? Maybe, but here's the question I have for you. Will you still have a mind left by that point?